Hello, I'm Georgina Summers. In this presentation, I will be discussing my reflection in regard to Assessment Task 2, Cultural Plunge. I will be reflecting upon my thoughts surrounding equity in education, the interview I conducted, and how my view on culture and identity has changed. The interview I conducted explored identity in relation to education. I decided to interview my sister-in-law, Charmaine Galea, as she has a Maltese family heritage. I chose to interview her as I wanted to learn more about what it was like for her going through school, being culturally different. Charmaine and I have many similarities in how we live, our current family structure, the activities we partake in, and the values we share. However, I chose to interview her as we have differences in our cultural upbringing and educational settings and experiences. Going into the interview, I wasn't sure what to expect in relation to her education and her identity. I was sure she would have faced some challenges growing up with her family, culture, and her language restrictions. However, seeing as she didn't look particularly different in any way, I was curious to learn about her experiences. Charmaine was born in Australia. However, her parents moved over from Malta, Italy, not long before she was born. Charmaine was taught mainly English growing up, and her parents mainly speak Maltese as their first language. However, her mother knew some English. Charmaine spent her primary school years in a rural town of New South Wales. As there was a lack of cultural diversity among the students and people in the town, Charmaine said she felt somewhat othered due to her family's background. In her later years of schooling, her family moved to Melbourne. Her educational experiences while in Melbourne were significantly different to that of her primary school years in a rural town. She explained that being in the city, there were a lot more people of different cultures and backgrounds, that their knowledge and attitude towards her were a lot more positive, and she believed she felt included within the school. After interviewing Charmaine, I came to understand that she had difficulty accessing adequate education during her early years of schooling because of the two following factors: her parents' language barriers and her cultural differences, this leading to her being othered in primary school. Due to the language barriers, it was difficult for her parents to help with her schoolwork and understand at parent-teacher interviews. This particular experience affected Charmaine's ability to achieve through primary school, as she felt she didn't have enough support from her educators to help with this issue. It was important for her educators to acknowledge Charmaine's family linguistic diversity and provide an educational setting to accommodate for this. It was also the community and the educators' lack of knowledge and understanding in regard to cultural diversity, which is why she felt othered through primary school. However, when she moved to Melbourne for high school, her access to adequate education was not hindered in any way. As the school was in the city, the community and educational setting had been exposed to a wide range of cultural diversities previously. This factor helped Charmaine feel more included and accommodated for within her educational setting. It is my understanding the importance a culturally competent practice has on identity, belonging, and inclusion of all students. It involves building relationships, acknowledging language, showing respect, and encouraging identity. With this, an educator needs to consider the different cultural diversities it has, as it also significantly impacts on the student's education. My previous knowledge in regard to identity and belonging includes Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. This theory suggests that an individual's learning and development is affected and influenced by their surroundings. Bronfenbrenner's theory is divided into 5 ecological systems. These systems highlight the importance community, family, culture, and experiences have on an individual. This perspective explains the social and cultural context of an individual's family and community and how they contribute to their education. This also relates to how Charmaine's cultural background and her community in which she is surrounded and how it has affected her educational experiences. My awareness in relation to ways in which identities, belonging, and inclusion can influence educational experiences involves the educational setting, holding an understanding of the individual's background, language, values, and beliefs in order to promote inclusivity and a sense of belongingness. Acknowledging the individual's diversity and accommodating for them promotes the concept of equity within the educational setting. After completing the interview and researching the topic given, it has allowed me to look back and reflect on what I previously thought about particular topics, such as equity versus equality. In relation to education, equality is treating everyone the same. However, equity is giving everyone what they need to achieve and to be successful. It has also allowed me to understand topics I previously had limited knowledge on, such as social justice. According to the Chipotle reading, in order for students to develop their values and identities within society, they look to their community members, adults inside and outside the family, and peers who are committed to a social justice and addressing social issues. This educational practice builds upon the students' previous beliefs of social justice, which they can identify with their values that everyone is responsible for the common good. I myself have learnt from this that social justice in education is both educating students in a fair and just manner and also preparing them to become advocates for change stemming from their values and beliefs. Drawing from the readings, I discovered another concept I had limited knowledge on, which was the term othering. As suggested by the Burnett reading, othering is a term used to describe discrimination of a minority who are seen as culturally different to the mainstream culture, often choosing not to show their cultural identity to avoid being alienated from the rest of society. The concept of the other shows notions of social inequality within a society. Throughout my research, I have come to understand the meaning of social capital. It is a network of relationships among people who live and work in a particular society. Reflecting back on my interview I conducted, I can see the differences in both mine and Charmaine's social capital. As Charmaine has family over in Malta and built relationships and new connections here while growing up in Australia, she has a greater social capital between the two communities. Overall, throughout the readings, my previous knowledge, the interview I conducted and my own research, I now understand the multiple ways in which identities, belonging and inclusion can influence educational experiences. Thank you.